Welcome back to Hasbro's Hide. Back working on our Annealeez machine and the heat shield upgrades. And as I promised, I've been working on a solution to where we can put the shields on all three wheels. So far, I've only had a solution for the small wheel, which is what's on the top. And those many of you received. And many more are waiting because we're all waiting more of the shields to be made. So hopefully those will be coming soon from the supplier, that the guy that's making them for me. And I have just a few more, and I'm going to talk about those here just at the end of this video. But what I want you to see is the solution I found for making one set of shields work on all three wheels. That's sort of the ideal solution as the one I've been working on. Just by mention, and let me know if you like it or not, today's video will be done by GoPro. Well, on our new GoPro 10. They're not sponsoring anything, but I just thought I'd mention that. So you tell me if you like the quality of this or not. And we're going to initially be doing it in 2.7K. So what's the solution? Well, you can probably see I have a very messy bench with lots of parts. These are the biggest part of the solution. They're new upper shafts. Okay, and I'll show you how that works here in a minute on that. But you have to get longer shafts. They have to be cut to the right dimension. They have to have a relief slot ground for the set screw, etc. So that has to be done. You also then have to replace the threaded bolt on one of them. It has to go to a longer bolt. And again, I'll show you that as well. And then I've been trying to cut spacers, and I just was not happy with the quality of the cuts of the spacers I was doing. I've been working on several different materials, on a metal cutting bandsaw and chop saw and things like metal cutting chop saw as well. And it's just, the cut wasn't what I wanted, not consistent enough, etc. So I went back to the basic drawing board, and I'll show you what that is here in a minute. All right, let's take a look about how to install these shafts. Now, I've already removed the top wheel, so I've loosened the nut on the back and just spinning off, taking off the bottom wheel now, so you can see that. And then we'll take a look at what we got to do on the back side in order to install these shafts. So we'll spin it around. Like I said, the first thing you do is you're going to remove these two bolts. Now, when you do this, be careful to set something underneath here. You don't want to stress your wire. So I'm going to set this case here. And when I'm done, I'll set this onto the case. Okay, and you just don't want to pull this off here. Otherwise, you'll be doing some electrical repair, and you don't really want to be doing that. So let me remove these nuts here real quick, and we'll pull this thing off. Now, these nuts have grommets in them. And so you want to make sure you maintain them in the order they're in. So sometimes when you take them off, they won't pop out, and so that's good. That one's sticking. But I have had them pop out. So here we'll loosen this up, get the second one out. All right, so now our whole assembly comes free and loose. So I'll set this little case here up here in front of us, and now we can see more what's going on. Hopefully all you can see that. So what you have to do is first of two things. You change this upper shaft. To change the upper shaft, you just slide this gear off, maintain the orientation with the shaft portion that goes out of your case to the front. You pull off this spacer, and then you're going to loosen this and just slide in your new shaft. Okay, and then you tighten this up in that set screw location that I showed, the little ground thing. You'll feel it drop in there, and then just tighten it up. And that's all there is to doing the top one. Now the bottom one, it's not difficult, but there's another couple steps here that really need to be done. And that's going to be, let's see if I can get a good view here. I'll try to put some still photos up here too, you can see it too. But there's a couple nuts here. This shaft is held on by the bolt and washer here, but then there's a nut and washer right here. And so I'll pull this away, and you'll see this washer. Now, so to replace the shaft, it's no big deal. You just take, hopefully you can see that. That may be a little bit better there. You put a wrench on here, you loosen this nut, and there's going to be Loctite on your current bolt. So take your new bolt, lay it side by side with the head, and just apply some new Loctite in the same location. And then when you bring it back in, you tighten it up, and just tighten it roughly to that same position. You may have to adjust that just a little bit once you get it together to stop the bottom wheel from binding, okay? Because you don't want this to get locked up between that bolt and the case where it can't spin, because this just spins freely on this shaft. Okay, so that's what you'll do. Now, if you don't have grease there on this washer that's on this, just put a little bit of grease on there. That grease goes to the wheel side because that wheel slips on that washer. That's why you don't want this too tight. So if you find you're binding your wheel up, you'll have to adjust that nut, usually farther in just a little bit on that, and give it just a little bit more gap to play. But you see then grease on that, and then you put your wheel back on here. These two gears mesh, and you'll feel them mesh when they're in the right position like that. As long as you get this reasonably close, when you go to tighten it back up, you'll be good. So then you just turn around and install it in reverse order of what I just did. Of course, the DC drive motor goes to the top. Now, one thing you do notice is as you come through here, there's a lot of slop, a lot of clearance in both these holes that go through here and this. And so what you really want to do is try to get these centered up. So just get it here and get it close and get it started. And then once you get it in position, you'll just work and adjust it just a little bit. So let me get one of these started and get it somewhat snug, finger tight. Okay, and then you put the other one in, same way. Get all this out of the way. And again, there's a lot of play in these back holes in the sheet metal. I'm sure it's tolerances and etc., but just a lot of play in there. Now, these don't need to be very tight, okay? In fact, you don't want them very tight because they can cause additional binding. So just get them snug. The biggest thing is to make sure that you're centered in your holes. Now, if you see here, I'm not really centered. So with them not too tight, you can move that just slightly. You don't put a lot of strain on these shafts, but you'll feel, okay, you get that one in place and kind of hold that, and then come back around and tighten the bolt nearest that side. And again, just snug it up. And check your spacing again, and it looks pretty good. So now I can hold this one in position and tighten this up. And now you just turn it on and check to make sure the shafts rotate freely, and put your wheels on there, make sure everything looks good. So let me put the wheels back on, plug it in, and we'll be right back. All right, so now you can notice here that we have our bolts on the back. They're snugged up. Nothing's really too tight here. The only thing that really needs to get tight is this drive wheel, because you have to get this really snug so things don't slip. And if you see your top one not turning, you'll know things aren't quite tight. So you get this tight, and just tighten, by hand. That's all you need to do. And then you're all set. So now, with what I showed in these other segments and what's coming, you'll be able to run on any of the size wheels. Once you change those shafts out, then all three sizes wheels change. You just change the number of nuts and spacers you put in there, and there's no other issues. So that's pretty easy, right? If you're even halfway mechanically inclined, and even if you're not, it's pretty easy to change these shafts out now that have these cut and the machined the right dimension and have the wheels. So let me show you. This is a small wheel. So what do you do with a small wheel now? Well, you can do it the way you have it, but when you change this shaft out, it changes the configuration of spacers you need on the inside. So let me get my big hands out of the way here, and we'll take this wheel off and show you what it looks like. So with this longer shaft, you can't basically use a fully threaded shaft. So when you put a longer shaft in, it moves the whole threaded section forward. So you can't thread the other nut on all the way back. So you have to, in other words, on the current machine, right, you take the Annealeez, you take the nylon nut, you tighten it all the way back, and the nut itself tightens the wheel against this gear face. Well, you can't do that when you extend it forward. So short of continuing to put those in a die and cut more threads, what I did was just simply get some bigger nuts. So this is the next size nut up, and you'll put that on there, and it just acts like a spacer, and it lines itself up pretty well with that diameter, so it's not too cockeyed going in there. And then you add three washers as spacers. And then you put your wheel back on like we do normally, and then just hold it in place and put your nut on, your wing nut, and then you'll be all set. Now you just got to make sure you get it tight enough that the wheels don't spin, nothing slips in there, and this will work just fine. All right, now I've just slid the normal size wheel on there. Put one nut on there, and it looks like we'll need more than one nut. So we'll put a second one on there and see how we look. So yeah, it looks like 2 nuts, and then maybe 1 to 2 spacers or washers. Let's take a look here. Yeah, I think it looks like 2 washers will work. So 1 nut, 2 washers, or excuse me, 2 nuts and 2 washers. Yeah, that's going to work out just right. You just got to make sure there's a little bit of an air gap. I don't want too much of an air gap, but just a little bit of one, so you have a little bit of protection from conduction straight to the plastic wheel. So there you go. The standard wheel, the large wheel, you've seen now all 3 work no problem. So what I'm going to do, and I apologize for those that first got the wheels. I thought I could just do a simple spacer and put it in there, you know, a coupler nut, and it just couldn't do it. I mean, it just wouldn't work with the way the spacing is on these shafts as they come designed. So I had to then remake new shafts for here that will work with all 3 wheels and the spacer systems as well. And then you'll get a new threaded shaft for the bottom here. Back to the original wheels. When I sent them out, I said, okay, for now they're going to have to be just the small wheels, and if I could do a coupler nut, I would. Well, it just wasn't possible, like I said. So I had to remake some shafts. I'm going to have to include quite a bit more hardware. So what I'm going to do is in the bottom of this video, I'll post a link for the upgrade kit for the people that already have the small wheels. And it'll be obviously a lesser charge than it would be for the full kit. Now, there are many out there that have been asking me for the full kit since I ran out on the website or the eBay site there. And I'm sorry, I'm still waiting on my machinist to get back to me, but I do have 7 more sets, okay? So I'm gonna post 7 full sets that'll come with everything you need for all 3 wheels. So watch for those. I can't, there have been so many responses. I'm going to try to give the people that were first asking for them a little bit of a heads up, but it's almost impossible, but I'll try. But anyway, I'm hoping in the next week to get at least 50 more sets, if not 100 more. And so hopefully that'll be the case. We'll get more of these full kits going from that point on. And just sell then the full kit conversion. That way everybody has everything they need then to do the small wheel, the normal wheel, or the large wheel. So again, I hope you like this. Again, this is not a money-making thing for me at all. It's just trying to get these solutions out. It works really, really well, and I hope you all enjoy it. If you do, you know, please give me a like and subscribe, and I do appreciate your comments and feedback, because there's been some really good feedback and some things I've tried to improve along the way and trying to find a solution for melting the wheels on the Annealeez machine. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time.